So now we're going to start with some questions just for the group to generate some discussion. And then after these questions, then you're more than welcome to ask whatever questions that you have. I know. We'll start with the last question. Okay, since that seems to be the one that everybody wants. In her book Borderlands, Gloria Anzaldúa talks about the body and existence of the new mestiza being like the borderlands, as she must negotiate between two or more cultures and languages and many other things. Do you feel that this can be applied to the body and the existence and experience of the Afro-Latina? So, whoever wants to answer.
I want to jump in because that was the one that really jumped out at me. Just with the terminology, mestiza has never applied to me. As Crystal, or yeah, you pointed out that somebody is surprised when I speak Spanish. Absolutely. That's been my lifelong experience in the U.S. Yes. When I'm in Latin America, nobody's surprised I speak Spanish. Right. Which is interesting to me that those same people who now live in the U.S. are surprised. Right. So it's this pretending, denial, and I actually tweeted that this week, and a woman said that's because they're reading you as just a black woman, and I said, well, first of all, it's not just, and wherever I go, I'm a black woman. So the fact is that there's this manufactured image of Latinidad, and I'm always left out of it. Yes. I'm always when I'm interviewing my my interviewees, they're like, oh, my grandmother looks like you. So I'm signifying the black grandma in the closet. So with that, it's a lot of negotiation of multiple identities. It's the Afro-descendant, it's the woman, it's the being in the United States, it's the Latin American, it's, you know, it's a bunch of components to it. And then the language portion, it's, yes, English, Spanish, Spanglish, and then African American Vernacular English, which a lot of Afro-descendants and even non-Afro-descendants have co-opted for their use. So it's multiple identities, and it changes, well, it doesn't change that much, I should say, when I go into different spaces, because my body is a representation of, like Alicia brought up, a lot of these issues of running away and self-hatred, and I represent that. But I'm very proud to represent that, and for me, it has never been a negotiation, because I've always been firmly rooted in who I am and where I came from, which I owe a lot to my parents, like you do with yours. So I think it's very complex, and I think with that quote or with that ideology is that we need to start writing our experiences, because again, I don't think a lot of us up here are represented in that word mestiza. Just that one word.
The only thing I want to add to that, because I think you covered it, is we're not all Mexican. Period. You know, and that documentary that just came out, Latino in America, it's very heavily Mexican, and that's not the Mexican is not the only Latino in the U.S. There are 21. We're 21 strong countries, nations, and so I'd like to see us represented better, more responsibly.
Or even, you know, represent us in a more diverse way.
Right.
See, I think that's what's missing a lot from media, right? That they just think of Latino as one, you know, there is a stereotype of what Latino is.
Right.
If a Latino doesn't fit that stereotype, then you're not Latino. And we were talking before the panel just recently, and I'll just kind of jump into what Marshalla was going to say, is the incident which happened a few weeks ago about this young girl in Delaware.
Oh, the pageant girl?
The pageant,
Yeah,
taken, her title was taken away because she didn't fit the stereotype, basically. She wasn't, and so that's what our voices are, right here, right? We're trying to say, no, Latino is many things. And the reason why I think we all feel so strongly about speaking about the African voice in Latino is because that's the one that's mainly, as Alicia said, is the invisible voice, unfortunately. It's the one that's most denigrated, it's the one that's most, ostracized. So that's why it's so strong. Not that other ethnicities, Indian, Native, have those issues, but looking at the numbers and how much we are as much a majority or part of the Latino culture, it's unfortunate that we're the most invisible, meaning that we're not, you don't see our faces in major TV series or even films, or when we are in films, we're portrayed in certain ways. So that's why it's so important for us as women and as Black women to talk about, why it's important to talk about Latino and Black Latinos.
Did anyone else want to tackle that question?
It's not really tackling it, I guess. It's just, piggybacking or commenting into what the women are saying. As I said earlier, my perspective on my field is as entertainment, which is probably the biggest issue with everything in which we speak in. And there's so many factors to that. You have a casting, and the casting asks for a Latina, it's going to say specifically what they're looking for. So although we want to come and say, hey, it's me, if I don't speak Spanish at all. I understand it, but I don't speak it. My parents are second and third generation Americans. So it wasn't spoken at home in that way unless I went to Abuela's house. If I go to a casting, they're not going to cast me. That's the bottom line. If I go into an African American casting, they're not going to cast me. That's the bottom line. I feel like we are here, we are to empower ourselves, and we are going to start the conversation. But the issue is also what's portrayed in the media, and sometimes that's hard to change. A lot of the actors that are in the entertainment industry, they had to pick a side. You have to pick a side. You can't say I am an Afro-Latino because those things don't exist. Zoe Saldana in Look Who's Coming to Dinner, she played an African American woman. For me, that was huge for an Afro-Latina because guess what? They don't view us as Black. So to go and play a Black role, and her father was Bernie Mac, and she's Dominican all the way, was great for us. Those little changes are what gets the ball rolling and gets the things going. It's just changing the way people think and see us. Those are the important things. And leaving here knowing that. What I want to be, do I want to be mad? Yeah, of course, but at the end of the day, it is a level of ignorance, and it's something that's taught. It's not something that is, it's not something that people are just being outright stupid about. If you watch movies, when you watch Amistad, it's like the Africans, they went from Africa to here. They never teach that 22/3, 66% of the Africans from the Atlantic slave trade went to the Latin American countries. So no one really knows that. It's not really anyone's fault. When you look at these big companies, Paramount, Miramax, Lionsgate, the heads are all men. And they're all white. They don't really know. It's not really their fault. It's like, all right, well, what does this mean? What is this? What is this thing that's going on? We've been Afro-Latinos forever. That hasn't changed. But it's the fact that, the way that the industry works is that you do have to pick a side. So, in starting especially my company, the movement, it's hard. There were times where we would have castings and no one would come because no one knew they were an Afro-Latina or they were a Black Latina. Because they picked, and they had to. And we would have people, I would know other, and say, wait, why didn't you come? You're a Black Latina, you could have did this. Oh, I didn't really know because I don't do those roles, though they don't exist. So it's getting that going and getting people to understand that it's there, it exists. And it just takes time. I mean, I think we're one of the only in New York theater company, film company that does that. Everything is you have to pick. I know that happened for me. That's where my frustration came, was the fact that I had to pick. And I would go into roles and I really wanted to be Black. I really wanted to be Latin because I can tell those stories. But it's just not there. I mean, now, one of the best things that I ever saw was on Vogue when Zoe Saldana did, I think, La Colombiana. It said it, and I was like, yes, on Vogue, it said it in red letters. It says, I am a Black Latina. It was dope.
Finally said that.
And it was the greatest thing ever. Right, and but it's still important. No, it is, but it's easier to not say that. She could have not have said that at all. You know, you gotta give credit where credit is due too. She could have just said, I'm Dominican or I'm this. She's embracing the whole diaspora. She's saying that they exist. She could have just said, oh, I'm a Dominican, which she is. But she gave us a place that we don't necessarily always have. People are used to seeing Sofia Vergara and Jennifer Lopez, and while those women, they have broken down the doors for others, it's important to say, wow, they're finally doing that, because it's easy to just not do it. It's easy to not say it. It's so much easier. Why? Why are you gonna fight the fight? What's the point? She's still gonna get her check. This is about an industry that's money driven, and if no one is there and no one cares to say it, then it's not gonna change. So it's having that identity, having the three identities. Your home identity, being American, we're American. If anything else, we're here. You know, so having that home base and then being here. And for me, it's deeper than just, you know, the talking about it. We have to do something.
And I think that's key, you know, like there's a double consciousness. I feel like being Afro-Latino and claiming that is very empowering, but it also makes people very fearful of you. Because, as I said, my students were like, why are you trying to separate us, Ms. Ramos? And I said, it's not that I'm separating us, I'm showing that within the Latino diaspora, there's a rich African heritage. And it's about being conscious, and I think it was 2008, you know, I really decided to own that aspect of me when I finished my graduate studies. And I was like, I have to own this, because not so much in my immediate family, but my mother, but when I step outside of that household, you know, and one time my aunt broke it down, like Iwana, she says, you know, if we get in a boat, which boat do you think you're gonna go in? And she had that conversation, you know, if it's a white boat, you know, that same old story. And I was like, you know, I have to own it, and it's nothing wrong with saying I'm Afro-Latina, because it's a beautiful heritage. It's so rich, it's so vibrant, it's so full of so many things, and you know, and by speaking about it in a positive light in a children's book, you know, I didn't write from the perspective of adults, because I feel the children and the parents being aware and seeing this book available will open up a conversation. Because a lot of the times the parents are the ones who are ignorant, because it's what society teaches, and the media is very effective. You still look at the Latino channels, they still have blackface. You know, and it's so wretched. Sometimes I don't even watch Spanish TV because of that. It's so wretched. They still and they make sure they put the bright red lips. So you know, it took me a while to wear red lipstick. Not because of being, you know, younger, but now I say it's the blood of my ancestors, and I'm proud to wear red lipstick, you know, because the red lipstick signified a lot for us, you know, as Africans, as Latinos. You see that, or you don't want to associate with being black.
Girl, let me some red lipstick.
Well, since we brought up J-Lo, and we brought up Salma Hayek, and Zoe Saldana, and Sofia Vergara, I want to, in the picking of sides thing, I think that when you identify as an Afro-Latina, it's a political statement. It's revolutionary. You are owning who you are, like you are owning it. Yes. You owned it in 2008. And the issue is, Zoe Saldana, Jennifer Lopez, and Sofia Vergara are representative of us as Latinas. And they're in the media in a very powerful role. And unfortunately, they have to pick a side. But you know what? They get to choose. So they can demand roles be created where they can come out into the world as them. Not playing the Italian woman, not playing the white woman, not playing the black woman, being the Latina, right? And so when we're talking about media, right? This is media representations. How are we using media? So let's go there.
Absolutely.
Let's go there.
Absolutely.
I just want to throw in Gina Torres. Like, I love her because she is an Afro-Latina, of course, with big eyes, a big nose, big lip. I see myself in her when I see her on the screen. And yeah, she's stunning. And I just saw an interview with her, and she was on the red carpet, and it was a Spanish language TV station. And they were speaking to her in English, and then she was, she answered in English, and then she said something in Spanish, and again, they were surprised that she knew Spanish, and she was like, well, you were speaking to me in English, and I was wondering if this is a Spanish language television. I was confused why you weren't addressing me in Spanish. And right there, she blew them up, and just that one in a graceful way, because she's absolutely, like, she's the bomb.
And it goes both ways. Yeah. I know I had an interview with Univision, and my publicist was like, oh, you got the interview, blah, 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 blah. We get there, and the guy was like, oh, he's speaking a Malaman and in Spanish, and so I'm replying in English as I normally would. And he goes, oh, you don't speak Spanish? He goes, oh, we can't do the interview. We were going on in 5 minutes, and I'm like, are you serious? I'm like, no. We're going to do this interview today, and we're going to do it in English, because there's Latinos that speak English as well. That's ridiculous. You're gonna denounce me and look down upon me and degrade me because I'm not Latina enough because I don't speak Spanish. We're not doing that. And we did it in English and in Spanish. He refused to speak English, and I refused to speak Spanish. That way. I mean, that's ridiculous. Seriously, so it goes both ways. Sometimes if you see a dark-skinned Latina, you don't think that she speaks Spanish, and then if you see a typical-looking Latina, you would automatically presume she speaks Spanish, and it's just.
Since you brought up media representation, did you want to just, I guess, maybe tackle that?
Well, I can talk about how media is so powerful, right? With social media, and the documentary AfroLatinos, I mean, what it's doing is just incredibly beautiful. It's a massive and ambitious project where we've traveled to over 18 countries over the past 5 years, telling this story about the most marginalized and visibilized group of people who happen to be Black in Latin America. And so I think for the first time we are seeing these faces celebrated in a way that media has been incredibly irresponsible, especially Univision, especially Telemundo, especially Vanidades, and all of, whether it's magazines or TV or radio, where the faces you see are white. There was actually a magazine I love showing this. If you could find it, it would be awesome, because just to show it real quick, but it's online, and it's the most powerful women in Colombia. And there are these group of women they're having like tea at lunch. And if you look very closely, all you see are the most richest women in Colombia talking, but behind them are two Black women, big Black women in white, like maid uniforms with trays. You've seen it? Have you seen it? But I mean, if you don't pay attention, you really have to look at it deeply. But what are they saying? How are we using, how are we using media? I think we're using it in a very positive way, right? Because we're celebrating it. We have a long way to go.
But there was a big controversy with that, and I was happy about the controversy, because they were essentially used as props. And they're in the margins. They're serving you. You're the domestic. Exactly. You're the maid. You're the prostitute. You're the taking care of kids, or cooking very well, or dancing very well. And I think it's taking it upon ourselves. And someone mentioned that we have to do it ourselves.
Oh,
and I think the person you interviewed, we have to do it ourselves because the dominant group isn't.
Right.
So it's about creating those opportunities, and like Crystal, you're doing it. You're saying, look, I found this void, and I'm going to fill it because I count. Right. I matter.
I mean, I love my industry. Do I think it's wrong? I mean, yeah. There's a lot of times that we'll hit pitfalls, and we're kind of like stuck in a rut because we know we can't go but so far. But for the advancements that we've made, and other people will come out, and now our castings are full. We have like 5-hour castings where all these actors are coming in, and those things make a lot, they make a world of a difference. does it bother when you see a Pantene commercial, whatever the hell it is, and it's either, you know, white Latina or white woman or whatever? Yeah, it bothers, but I'm over that. I'm over it because I know that, like Alicia said, it's going to take time. It doesn't happen overnight, and the small steps count. You know, it's not just a conversation anymore. There are more people doing things, whether books, whether documentaries, you know, pictures. Those things matter because then, you know, it's like what Dash said about her friend, and that's deeper than anything else. When they did the Clark's test, I think in 1957, when they gave the black little girls, they gave them a choice of what doll they were gonna pick. They picked the whiter dolls. And there's nothing wrong with that, but what's the connotation inside of it is this level of self-hate. And it's because you're hating what you are because you don't get to see it. There's no identification. You're watching this black box on TV and it's like, well, nobody looks like me. I might as well look like them. Let me go do this. Because what do you want to look like? There's nothing of what you look like at home. And so there's this ideology that goes forth. But I don't think it's anything that's, at first I used to be very angry. I used to be very upset and I was like, this is ridiculous and this is, you know, I feel like I'm in the Matrix. But now I know that it's really just about us doing something and us pushing it. It's there, it's a market. I do this for a living. This isn't like, you know, a hobby for me. I have 2 children and I make a living off of this. So there is buying power. People like us want to see these things. We just have to invest into ourselves instead of investing into others.
I think I really want to talk about that and speak about that because there is something empowering about supporting things that you believe in. And just attending events sometimes can be the way you show support, or, you know, just reblogging something or retweeting it, because there is a lot of buying power. What I find in our own community is Black is connected to being poor. And so when you're having conversations, I remember one of my students, her mother goes, you know, we're having a conference, and her mother goes in Spanish to her, you know, you want to be like those Black, you know, kids, da-da-da. And I stood up to her, and I said, you know, my Black students, they are on the honor roll, they're doing very well, and I'm sorry, but my Latino students are not doing as well. And I had that moment with her, and I went, you know, I went on, but I redirected it into a humanitarian voice. I was like, let me go back, you know, because it's like constantly negation of Black students, and if you see Black kids, like Trayvon Martin, I won't go into that, everyone has their own opinion. And even in the school, there was a little girl named Tiana Parker, on September 5th, 7 years old, being told about her hair and how she can't be in a school because of her hair. And Jakina McCoy taking the crown off of her. So this has all happened this year, and I called the schools, I spoke to them, and I was like, this is ridiculous that you're seeing that a little baby can't go to school with her own hair that she was born with. You know, so it's definitely a lot of the images, and I see like a lot of the hair products are now trying to say, oh, we're natural hair care products and all this, but they're actually not natural hair care products. But anyways, it really takes, it really takes the parents and people being educated and having simple dialogues, because sometimes, you know, family members will get upset about it when you speak to them. But it takes, it's, like you said, it's a process, it's a dialogue, and really supporting people who represent the ideals that you connect with. And that's what it comes down to, because that's the only way society is going to change. Fundamentally change.
If you challenge,
yes,
you have to challenge people.
I think this, the biggest challenge here is sometimes within our own communities, because, and within our own families. You know, when I did this project, and it's just, I always call it the first phase, because my idea has been to actually interview more people and interview more Afro-Latinos that may not look Afro, because it's a consciousness. For me, it's a consciousness. You know, it's really understanding that even though you may not look, quote unquote, Black or African, but that you understand that in your family or in your roots or in your heritage, there is that history, or even within your culture that there's that history, and that at some point, maybe centuries along the way in your family tree, there was, you know, there was African heritage, or, you know, I think that's even more important, to have that consciousness, and that's what happens within our Latino communities, in Latin America, and sometimes that's the struggle that we have. How within our own families, our own communities, we are not accepted as being who we are, or Latino, because of our skin color, and there's all this prejudice of it. And you know, you see the light-skinned Latinos that may deny, you know, being Afro-Latino, and then you have the dark-skinned Latinos that also deny that, you know, and that all really, it doesn't all boil down, but I think a large component or a reason why that happens, that self-hatred, and also of ourselves and of other people within our own culture, really comes from centuries of colonization, of how there is this aesthetic of beauty, and how there's this ideology that has been established and has been ingrained, socialized in our society, that being black, you know, is not being intelligent. Being black is, you know, you don't have the capacity to do certain things. You know, being black is being quote unquote ugly. So, you know, centuries of that indoctrination, which has done is had made us black people, Afro-Latino people, hate ourselves, because I don't want to be that. You know, I don't want to be all those things that, you know, the dominant society or dominant ideology has said that is the pillar of beauty, right? So then it is so strong, that ideology is so strong and so ingrained within our own community, that I think that's the hardest part for us to really not only challenge, but to change, but to change. This, before this is what has to be changed, you know, that you know, it's being positive. The other thing is that, you know, we have our heritage as Afro-Latinos, as also mestizo race in a certain degree. Mestizo not being Mexican, but mestizo meaning that we have roots from different cultures. You know, is accepted. You know, so that, I think that's where we have our strongest battle, at this point, you know.
In the interest of time, I'm going to take questions from the audience because we're running low on time. So if anyone has a question that they'd like to pose to this wonderful panel, by all means, please.